DW Africa Link.
31 years ago, Rwanda was plunged into one of the darkest chapters in human history. Over the course of just 100 days, more than 800,000 lives were taken in the genocide against the Tutsi. The remembrance of this incident allows the country to pause, not just to mourn, but to reflect, rebuild, and reaffirm a commitment to never again. In this episode, we take a moment to honor the victims, explore how the nation continues to heal, and consider what the world must learn from Rwanda's journey from horror to hope. Stay tuned. My name is Josephine Mahachi. Welcome to Africa Link, the podcast that connects you to the stories that matter from Africa.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
Rwandans have been remembering victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, in which more than 1 million people, mainly Tutsi, were massacred by Hutu militias. From the 7th April, a day designated by the United Nations as International Day of Reflection on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, to the 14th of April, the official commemoration week, Rwandans and foreign missions across the world marked the 31st anniversary since the genocide. This year's anniversary comes as Rwanda faces renewed accusations of backing the Tutsi-led M23 group currently fighting in eastern DRC. Now joining me to discuss more on this is Freddy Mutangua, CEO of the IG's Trust and International Organization working to prevent genocide, and Alex Ngarambe, our correspondent in Kigali. I'll start with you, Fred. In all fairness, it's prudent that I allow you to briefly share with us and the listeners the circumstances under which you survived the genocide. I know it's a long story, but you have the platform to share with us as briefly as you can the circumstances.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm a survivor of genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda in 1994. I was 18 years old. The 1994 genocide that took lives of more than 1 million of Tutsi in this country took also the lives of my family and my parent and my 4 sisters. We were 6 children in my family, and only my sister and I actually survived. So, and on 7th of April, our house had been attacked by the militias, and my family used to bribe them and give them food and money to save to not kill them. And my mom, who advised me to go and hide with my the families that were not really targeted, and I went first to a lady. Her name is she was a widow. Her name is Kagindi, and then after 2 days, I moved to my friend Peter, who was my colleague at primary school, and he kindly hid me in his house, which was much more safe, and at that time. And so the attack continued at my family, and this took 6 days. And on 13th of April, that the time that I shared the last meal with my mom, who came to see me at Peter's house, and we shared fruits that she brought to me, and she looked at me and say, the attacks have been too much, and at our house, and she said that if you survive, be a man, be strong, and because that time I was looking at her eyes, she completely lost her hope to live, and that was really something that hurt me that time. So she looked at me and say, be a man, and she left after a few minutes. So 14th of April, at the time, many militias attacked our house again, and that was really the final attack because they were killed on 14th of April. My parents and my four sisters. My four sisters were being thrown into a long septic tank and alive, and they were killed with all the stones that been throwing on their head until they finished, until they die. So I was still they also collect me because when the attack happened, the member of my family ran away and they also collect them and put in one place. I was also discovered. And when I met my family, someone from the crowd was saying that Rosette, my sister, and myself, because my father, who raised me, was my stepfather, and my father who died in Burundi because he was in a refugee camp, my biological father. So that kind of confusion being raised with my stepfather, and as of course raised in that region, someone in the cloud say that the Freddie and Rosette, they're Burundians because their mom brought them here in the region to be raised by the stepfather. So that confusion came up, and then so they left us and they took my parents and my four sisters that were born that my mother had with my stepfather, and they were all killed. So that's how I survived. I'm so glad that I'm still alive and also having five children this time. And today it's a healing point for me. And I think I'm trying to be a man as my mother advised. And that's actually, in summary, how I can describe it.
Wow, it's quite chilling. Really, really sad hearing you describing this. However, every year, I mean, of course, there is remembrance period in Rwanda. How is it for you? How do you feel every year when you have to relive again the circumstances?
This is the moment that we look back and think about what happened to us. 31 years have been a journey, and it's a time to reflect exactly what happened to us even before, how the Tutsi people been persecuted, been deprived of human basic right, and until 1994, when they was a final solution and they killed them. But also it's time to reflect how what it means for us to survive and what it means for us to be in the place of people that we lost during 1994 genocide against Tutsi. So at some point you're taken aback. You feel that really at some point you feel alone because this is exactly a time you feel that loss. But at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, the last conversation I had with my mother, it always come back in my mind, and then also thinking that, oh yes, she wanted me to be a man, but I can't. If I lose the hope to live, that it will be a man that my mother asked me to be. So it gave me a strength to be in that place and be a man that my mother wanted me to be. And that
Wow.
time, for the 31 years, things happened. I went to school. I came back and had a family. And the fact that you make a little bit progress in your life, the hope to live and the hope to have a life, a purpose of life actually increases. Today, I feel really much more stronger the than right after genocide,
Mm-hmm.
and of course here to support the process of commemoration, where we are get involved in so many activities of commemoration, but also we understand that keeping the memory and also the artifact of genocide is very, very important for the future, and mainly for the young people who were not there at that time, who want to learn about what happened, but also to be committed, to be part of the process of preventing these atrocities to happen again.
Let's turn to our correspondent right now, Alex Ngarambe. As a journalist on the ground, what do you make of 31 years after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi?
Josie, I think 31 years down the road, I think it's been a long journey for the country, for the people, just like Freddie has been saying. This is a country at that time when it was written off. This is a time when it was considered a failed state by any standard. And this country was devastated, let's say, and many people had died in this country, and many people had fled this country, whether those who were being hunted at the time and when the RPF government captured power. People who were not being hunted also had fled with the regime that was in power at that time. Basically, we had people coming from abroad who were returning after 30 years in exile. So it was a country that was soul-searching. It was an empty country in every standard you can talk about. So, and to be honest with you, even people who are supposed to be returning from exile after 30 years, I think they didn't have hope, they didn't have faith in this country, because personally, I was not living here, my parents were not living here. I know so many people were not living here. They were even very hesitant to return because they didn't have hope in this country. They didn't have faith in this country. They felt like they wanted to stay in exile forever, even when RPF had captured power. So it is a country that really had lost everything. It is a country that had been written off. But reflecting back 31 years down the road, I think there has been a positive, progressive change. I think now the country has pride in itself. The country has restored pride, faith. Now the whole world recognizes what Rwanda is. They recognize what they have gone through. They recognize what they have achieved. And it is really something that the leadership must be proud of themselves. It is something that the people now, the Rwandan people in this country, are proud of themselves, proud of what they have achieved, proud of what the journey they have made, they have taken 31 years down the road. Yeah, so it has been really a tough challenge for the country. It's been a tough challenge for the leadership. It has not been easy, but yes, it was something that had been done, and I think Rwanda had to stand up and be counted. Yeah, so it's really something that the world recognizes, that Rwanda has come out of the bottom pit. They are seen.
Right. Yeah, talking about the present, since you still have the mic, Alex, Rwanda is embroiled in fights in eastern DRC as we speak, accusing genocidal forces of FDLR of planning to attack Rwanda and carry out another genocide. Do you think they have the capacity, and do you think the situation actually makes Rwandans feel, especially at this particular period where they're actually commemorating 31 years of the 1994 genocide?
Yeah, yes, the FDLR is a militia. It's a genocidal militia group. It left Rwanda after carrying out the genocide against the Tutsi, and it's been 31 years down the road. Yes, they would have wished to come back immediately. They left and start from where they left off. But 30 years down the road, yes, the ideology is there. Given the capacity, they can come back maybe and finish off what they didn't finish 31 years ago. But yes, I think Rwanda understands the threat. The Rwandan leadership understands the threat that the FDLR can pose. And I think Rwanda has been building defensive capacities for the 31 years. And yes, because Rwanda has been fighting FDLR for the last 31 years. They have never stopped to try and attack Rwanda. They keep attacking Rwanda year in, year out. But I think, yes, they have the ideological capacity, but the physical capacity to come and attack Rwanda and kill Tutsis again, or indeed kill any other person. I think Rwanda has secured its borders by far, I think, for the last 31 years. Apart from maybe in the late 90s, when we had the remnants of this group that tried to attack the northern province, that happened. But from the late 90s to the present, I don't think Rwanda has had any insecurities to talk about, leave alone a few small pockets of criminalities, but in terms of a threat to the nation, a threat to the security agencies, that we have not had. But again, I think Rwandans, they are not so afraid of the physical attacks that can come from FDLR, but the ideology is still there. That's the most important thing. The ideology still resides in the hearts and souls of FDLR.
Right, right. Now, coming back to you, Freddie, I don't know if you also want to add something on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just adding what on the question about the FDLR, and I was thinking that it was a threat, but and of course the FDLR, they tried to invade the country, and I remember in 1997 when they've been invading into the country, but also they killed some people on the borders, and also they killed the people in one of the school called Nyanye, where the children, the students who were in doing revision and during evening time, they were being attacked, and then they've been asked to separate the Tutsi and the Hutu on one side and Tutsi on another side. They refused, and they start actually shooting massively into the clouds. So many have been killed, but also others survived. So those attempts and coming back and finish what they have started and failed even to finish. I've been there for the last 31 years, and of course the defensive measures have been put in place, have been really saving the country. So today, as you said, for the conclusion, when we concluded the commemoration day on 7th of April, all the time, the commemoration week starts on 7th of April and lasts for the 15th of April. That the time that the whole country is in the mourning period. It starts with activities related to commemoration in the morning on 7th, where all people in their own villages, they attend commemoration event that prepared in the villages, and but on national level, the president of republic always come to the memorial together with the survivors, together with international communities, but also the Rwandans in general, to come to the memorial and lay wreath to any respect of the victims of genocide on behalf of the all Rwandans.
We also hear reports of harassment and murders of the genocide survivors, especially during the genocide commemoration week. What do you think causes such murders?
Ideology of genocide has been taught in Rwanda on many different levels, in schools and homes and different communities and in politics, and so these have taken over 3 decades, and to get this completely wiped out, it takes long. It's very, very long and takes generations. So we know that people in their mind, they still have really this ideology of genocide. They feel that the hatred they have, which at some point it translated into violence they can have to their neighbors, we're still seeing it. This shows really trying to prevent this violence to happen, prevent also to teach about peace instead of hatred is still going on. So we know this is happening. I think what we can do, and this is actually the promise as survivors we have from the government and also from the security organs that need to protect people physically, but we need to also continue to be mindful that in people's mind the ideology is still going on, and we need to really keep having more programs to support this prevention of this kind of violence to continue.
Now, Alex, you've been speaking to a lot of people, the young generation, as you report on this story. What is the young generation thinking about 31 years ago, and what is their role in fighting the genocide ideology that Freddie just touched on?
This is 31 years ago, and somebody who was born in 1994 is an adult. basically, let's say, is an adult. And yes, they might not know a lot about what happened physically as people who were living at that time. Maybe Freddie, of course, he was here. He was a young man at 18. But 31 years, it's a long time. But yes, you can give credit to the government. I think they have tried to keep the history. They have taught the young generation what happened. They have taught the young generation what caused the genocide. And they are still teaching the young generation. If they sit back and don't know and think about what happened, maybe it can happen again. But yes, the government has been on ground. The government has gone to schools. The government, as low as primary school, secondary school, universities, they have formed clubs. They are really giving education to the young generation. So the young generation, they were not here, yes, but through the education, through these campaigns, they get to understand the history, they get to understand their roles. Through these clubs, they take up leadership roles as young people. They form clubs, they go and teach their fellow young people about the genocide, about the history of the country. And the government has also included programs about how the young generation can go forward and take the leadership forward in case the current leadership is not here. So it is all about the government and what they have done, because somebody who was born in 1995 really, he does not fathom what happened.
Now, as we wrap up our discussion with you, Freddie, as our guest, you are a father of 5. So obviously you also know how best we can handle the situation or the issue to nurture the young generation that knows a little bit about what happened in 1994. How do you nurture them into citizens who embrace unity and avoid ethnic hatred?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge not only for me or only, but a challenge for Rwandans, because as we talk about the transmission of trauma, and we need also to understand the transmission of our stories and the transmission of what happened in this country is done in very positive way, so that the young people, our children, can embrace the process of reconciliation, the process of forgiveness, the process of peace, rather than going back where we were, the mistakes that were made 31 years ago. So it's a challenge. We understand it, but we need to do it intentionally to instill the positive values that we lost even before this ideology get implanted in this country. Rwanda had some positive values that really made people to coexist together in harmony and peace.
Fred Mutangua, CEO of the Aegis Trust, an international organization working to prevent genocide, and DW's correspondent in Kigali, Alex Ngarambe, many thanks for joining us.
Get the stories that are shaping the continent here on Africa Link.
At the Africa Link podcast, we always look across the continent to see how the stories we are dealing with play out or at times even overlap. It is not Rwanda alone that is trying to move on from such atrocities. After the end of the apartheid in South Africa in 1994, there's been an attempt to reconcile Black and white South Africans. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, TRC, was established in 1995 to address the human rights abuses and violence that occurred during apartheid. But reconciliation remains challenging, with lingering issues of racism and inequality. It only shows that the process of reconciliation has been complex and still ongoing. Hopefully, significant progress is made sooner. That's it for this edition of Africa Link. Remember, you are not just a listener, but a part of our community, and your engagement can shape the direction of our discussions. We value your insights and encourage you to share your thoughts with us. You can find all of the Africa Link podcast episodes on Spotify and Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts from. This episode was co-produced and edited by Isaac Kalechi. My name is Josephine Mahachi. Thanks for listening. Until the next one, it's bye for now.
DW News.
Here are today's top happenings and why they matter. Tanzania's leading opposition party, Chadema, says it will launch an international petition to block the country's upcoming October general elections after being disqualified from participating. The move follows escalating political tensions and the party's refusal to sign the official electoral code of conduct, citing an unfair playing field. Opposition party leader Tundu Lissu has been charged with treason following his arrest at a public rally in which he called for electoral reforms ahead of elections. So what does Chadema want? Under its no reforms, no election agenda, the party is demanding an independent electoral commission, revival of the stalled constitution writing process, legal changes to allow independent presidential candidates, judicial review of presidential election results, and a requirement that presidential winners secure at least 51% of the vote. Here is DW's Naomi Jaseda on why the story matters.
The opposition targets to collect over 15 million signatures through rigorous grassroots petition to show the world that elections without reform are elections without legitimacy. Meanwhile, President Samia has pledged to ensure peaceful, fair elections, but also warned her government will not tolerate disruptions to the electoral calendar. But here is the bigger picture. With the general elections just months away, Tanzania is at a crossroads. Rights groups say recent arrests, abductions, and political violence mirror past authoritarian tactics.
It sends a bad signal that the democratization process and the independence of the parties and all those rules and the regulations around that line are not proper, and is sending this message to the international community, to the world at large, that we don't adhere to political processes. We don't adhere to democratic processes.
Thanks, Naomi, for that. And sticking to election-related matters, supporters of Gabon's president-elect Brice Oligui Nguema are still celebrating in the capital Libreville after a sweeping election victory. More than 70% of Gabon's 920,000 registered voters turned out on Saturday in a peaceful vote, hailed by international observers as largely incident-free. Congratulatory messages are still streaming in following the transitional election. French President Emmanuel Macron personally congratulated Oligui in a phone call, a diplomatic boost to a leader trying to distance himself from his military past. But the challenges ahead are steep, from crumbling infrastructure and massive debt